Hello and welcome everyone to another episode of EduVoice, where we explore the evolving landscape of study abroad opportunities and the global education system. I'm Riya Qureshi from Auxilo, and today we have Mr. Jay Rege from Academy One. With a vast experience in guiding students for their MS in USA, today he's going to shed some light and share some information with us that's going to help you with your educational journey. Welcome, Mr. Jay. And before we begin today, I would request you to share some of your experiences or your stories and about Academy One and your journey in guiding students for their MS journeys.
Yeah, thank you for having me here. So we started Academy One. That is my wife Jyotsna and I. We started Academy One in 2005, and this would be almost 20 years, the 20th batch that we would be working with. We started off mostly with guiding students for their MS in US applications. Of course, over the years, we have helped students for other countries as well. But even today, most of the students who come to us are for MS in the US. That is what our forte is. We help with undergrad admissions and, as I said, for other countries as well. And our mission is always, to help students get into the best possible university. I mean, using the student's profile, backgrounds and all that, we kind of focus on where would the student, which universities and which programs would be the best fit for the student, and how does the student get into that. So we cover everything right from helping them with deciding on the programs, deciding on the universities, with the entire application process, guiding them on the finances, visa and all that. And it's been almost 20 years that we have been doing this, and more than 2,000 students we have helped with their applications to MS in the US itself.
So I think 20 years is a long time, and we'll have a lot to talk about today, and I think it will definitely help students that are going to watch this episode. So given your expertise, why do you believe USA is a popular destination for students that want to pursue an MS?
So US has always been a very popular destination, and traditionally if you look at the US institutions were mostly very research oriented, and that is how US started getting popular. I mean, if you look at from the 90s or even the 2000s, most of the students who went to the US went for research programs. Oh. And when students went for research programs, they often got funding. So that made US very popular amongst master's applicants, because most of the students who went there in the 90s or in the early 2000s used to get almost 100% funding. So that is what made that popular. If you compare actually US universities versus universities in, say, the UK, Australia, or even in some parts of Europe, US and even Canadian universities are very much focused in going into the depth of the subject. If someone is really interested in studying, getting into the depths, then US even today I would say, is one of the most preferred and the best choice for students who want to get into depth, especially technical STEM courses. So like if you look at computer science or engineering, mathematics and those kind of courses, right? The research and the in-depth that the professors cover as part of the syllabus, you will not find in most of the other countries.
Okay.
So that is what makes it very popular.
And what sets apart the educational system of the United States from our education system?
So one is, of course, at a master's level, if you're looking at the flexibility in choosing your courses. So mostly if you look at any master's programs, so they would have a student typically takes around 10 to 12 subjects, courses, plus they would also get to do a thesis, which is a research component of it. Out of those 10 subjects that a student selects, 3 or 4 would be core subjects and the rest would be electives. So the electives form almost 60 to 70% of the curriculum. That sometimes makes US a very popular destination, because as a student, you get to choose what subjects you want to pick up for your masters, what do you want to specialize in, and that is what makes it a very popular destination again.
Okay.
And that flexibility, like you asked me, what is the difference between that and the Indian thing? So the Indian curriculum is not that flexible. I mean, most of the courses as part of the even master's programs are kind of pre-decided by the institution, whereas the student does not get a very big choice to pick up subjects. plus the practical aspects. If you look at any other course, right, or any subject that a student studies, there are assignments, there are team projects, and then there is an exam kind of thing. So the importance is given to every aspect of the learning, not just the final exam. So that again makes it slightly different from what most of the Indian universities follow. Of course, things are changing in India also, but this is how the traditional US system works.
And I think we can also opt for an additional subject if we've taken a
Correct.
particular major and then I feel like I want to explore something more. We
True.
can pick another subject as well.
Yes, so that you can always do additional majors. There are also options to audit courses.
Okay.
When you say audit, in the sense, you can, if you say you are a computer science major, but then you feel that there is, say, a course in physics that you're really interested in, but you don't want to actually study that. But so you can request the professor to audit it. In the sense, you go, you attend the courses. You don't have to give exams. It would not show up on your records. But you can actually sit throughout the course and learn. And that is what is auditing a course. So those options are also available in the US.
That's really nice.
Yeah.
So in your experience, what are the most significant advantages of picking an MS when you're studying in the United States over an MBA?
See, MBA and MS are kind of differently structured in the US. Or in most countries for that matter, but in US, MS, I mean, in given today's market, and I'm talking in terms of from a perspective of an Indian applicant or any foreign applicant, right? The US job market today is more skill driven.
Okay.
In the sense, companies are looking for students who have a very specific skill. The MBA sometimes becomes a little more generic. And if you look at recruitments of MS applicants versus MBA grads, when someone has done an MBA, right, the brand value of the university or the program where they have graduated from plays a very big factor in recruitment. Like if you're an MBA from an Harvard or versus an MBA from say a lower ranked university, the opportunities that you get, the salaries that you get vary a lot. But when you compare the MS part of it, MS graduates from even mid-tier universities get equally good opportunities as what MS graduates from top-tier universities can get.
Okay.
Of course, yes, the number of opportunities that a top-tier student might get in terms of the number of interviews and all would be higher or better, but salaries do not vary a lot. Like for example, if a Google kind of a company picks up a student from a top-tier university versus a mid-tier university, the salary differences would not be that high, that vast, only because of the brand of the university. But when it comes to MBAs, that matters a lot. And since the US market for internationals is more skill based, right? In the sense, universities prefer students with a specific skill. I mean, that is how the whole visa sponsorship and all comes into effect, right? I mean, companies are allowed to apply for visa only when they can demonstrate that the applicant has a particular skill that we don't find in local candidates and all that. So skill-based recruiting is what is currently driving the US market, and MS programs actually give you much better skill sets, specialized skill sets than an MBA. So that is why if you see over the past few years, the shift has been more towards the MS applicants. I mean, you'll find a lot more students going in for an MS degree versus an MBA degree. Yes, a few top tier, maybe the top 10 or top 15 MBA programs still get a lot of applications. But comparatively, the mid-tier MBA programs, most Indian applicants have stopped venturing out for those.
Okay.
And if you also look at the whole OPT thing, that I mean the job work permit that students get after that,
yeah.
you ideally get a 1-year work permit, and then you can extend it by 2 more years if your degree comes under the STEM category. Now STEM is science, technology, engineering and mathematics, and management degrees traditionally don't come under STEM. So that again puts you at a disadvantage at times, where you can get only a 1-year work permit before you need to get your work visas or H1 visa. Whereas in an MS, if it's a STEM MS, you effectively get 3 years of work permit in the US.
There are certain MBAs that...
Yes, there are a few MBAs, like if you look at the MBA program from NYU and a few other universities who have now converted to a STEM MBA. Or then there are some MBAs where if you specialize in, say, an analytics or an operations or finance or some program, then you still qualify as STEM. So universities are trying to adapt to this whole STEM and non-STEM thing. But still, traditionally, if you look at the number, I mean, if you look at the top 100 MBA programs, top 100 MBA programs, most of them are still not STEM.
Okay.
Because traditionally, an MBA is a management degree. It's not a science, technology, engineering, or mathematics, right? So some universities have kind of changed their program to make it a STEM curriculum, but most are still not STEM.
So it's fairly a new transition to adapt to the current market standards. So as someone that has guided numerous students, what is the common mistakes that students make during the application process?
So one of the common mistakes that students make during the application process is that students don't apply early. Because students kind of delay the whole application process for numerous reasons. So not applying early is one of the common mistakes, because many universities in the US still follow a rolling admission process. It's not typically first come first serve. It's not that if you apply the first one to apply, you will definitely get an admit. But as and when students apply, right, the universities evaluate their application and give a decision. That is what the rolling admission process is. So by delaying the whole process, by applying very late in the application cycle, universities might have already rolled out many admits. So then you are just decreasing the chances of you getting an admit just because you didn't apply early. So applying early can actually help you increase your chances of admission. That is one mistake that students make. And again, US admissions are very, I mean, you have a lot of components when it comes to applying. Like you need your test scores, you need letters of recommendations, you need transcripts, you need to work on your resumes, the SOPs and all that. What students often do is that they work on everything in sequence and not in parallel. In the sense, first students would say, okay, I would first work on my GRE, and then I would work on my TOEFL or IELTS. Then they would start deciding on the universities. Then they start working on the resume. Then applying for transcripts, and that order. So I often tell students you could do things in parallel, because say for example you need to apply for transcripts. Go and do it the moment you decide that you need to go abroad, right, or to the US.
That itself
you can just
because
days. Colleges take around 2 weeks, 3 weeks to issue transcripts. In some cases, so you could just go and get it. Apply. You can talk to your recommenders. At least finalize your recommenders, so you know that these are the 3 people who are going to give me recommendation letters. Start working on the resume. Yeah, of course, if you are crunched for time, if you are still in college, you are working, and you really can't manage a lot of things together, then yes, you can focus on your exams first and then do all that. But if there is time, I would say work on things in parallel, so that you can still start working on every aspect of your application from the moment you decide that, okay, I need to go abroad. That will just help you manage things a little easier and close the whole application cycle a little faster.
Okay.
That way. Another common mistake, I wouldn't call this a mistake, but students are often, when they look at universities or where do I study, right? That's always a big question that students have. They don't look at the overall picture. Rankings often dominate students' decision a lot. And this is, again, I've seen students from different geographies in India have different mindsets. Like if you look at students from Mumbai, Pune, they are very focused on the ranking and the reputation of the university. Some markets, if you go down south in India or even Gujarat, Punjab, cost is a very important factor for most. So they just want to go to cheaper programs right? And the mistake that most sometimes students make is that, okay, either they apply to 2 ambitious universities or they apply to 2 low-ranked universities. Right? Either way, it doesn't work out for me. If you ask my recommendation, I always say try to go to the best possible university that you can get into, but always have a plan B in place. It's quite possible that even if you don't get into your A grade university or whatever is your dream university, you can still, your next bet option should be to go to maybe a mid-tier university, rather than just dropping your plans of going for your masters. Because even if you go to a mid-tier university, you still can get equally good opportunities at times if you probably plan your whole journey properly. And then when you're selecting mid-tier universities, look at the location. So try to look at universities which are ideally located in big cities, maybe in California, New York, Boston area, where there are good job opportunities, of course, based on the subject that you're choosing. but those can still give you much, equally good opportunities as a top tier university. So rather than just saying that if I don't get into a tier 1 university, I would not go, because then your options are almost nothing. And then students say, then I'll apply next year. But what they don't understand or realize is that next year the competition is going to be even higher.
And then you also have to justify the gap, right?
Right. Of course, if you're working or if you're doing something else, that is fine. But otherwise, yes, if there's going to be a gap in your profile, you're just going to do nothing and then apply next year, that is not going to increase your chances of getting it. Unless you improve your test scores significantly, say your GRE or the GMAT scores, that can help. Just waiting for another year will not help you get into a better university anyway.
So, considering the recent changes in the education system, what are the new subjects or what are the syllabus changes that have happened that have impacted one's job readiness?
So, earlier, if you looked at it, computing, or I would say computer science or data science, or these subjects were not really a requirement for most graduates, kind of thing. But today, if you look at it, even if you are a mechanical engineer or you are maybe doing something in finance, you still need to have the computing skills. So that is something, computing, AI, data science, statistics, mathematics, and all those things, they have kind of become essential for everybody. So everybody kind of needs to know Python programming. Even if you're a chemical engineer, you probably choose chemical engineer because you didn't want to do programming, but you still, in today's day and age, saying that I don't want to do programming or I don't want to study any computing related subjects is like not going to be a good decision for anybody. So there are students who do even business related courses. People say I want to go for business course or even economics or finance and all those courses. They still end up doing, you don't have to be a pro at it, but you still need to know that.
As a beginner.
Yes, as a beginner. You need to have some basic understanding of those. Those courses are being integrated in the syllabus. Most universities are bringing those. But if not, students still sometimes take online courses or additional courses and try to garner those skills. So that is one change that you will see over the past years, that computing, AI and all that has kind of become an essential skill. You can't just say I don't want to do that, or I'm not interested in that, or that's not my core area. That is the thing. Even for students who go for core computing, if you're a computer science student, or even probably if you're studying something in AI and all that, in spite of things are changing so rapidly that while universities are also trying to catch up with what is happening in the market, it is always not possible for universities to change their syllabus overnight.
Correct, yeah.
Whereas technology changes, maybe what is really relevant today may not be, it's still relevant 6 months down the line, but there is something new in the market.
Of course.
So students who go for these high-end tech courses, you will always find that they are taking online courses, additional courses, maybe looking up at discussion forums, working on a lot of real-time projects, just so that they can stay updated with what the market needs today or what the industry needs today. So that is another area that students also are trying to do that, and universities are also trying to cope up with this ever-changing technology space especially.
And that's fair enough. I think because of technology, there's so much change. It's obviously going to be difficult to inculcate everything into the system, considering there are level of approvals and there's a thought process that goes in everything. But I feel if this much has happened, it is fair for a student to be prepared for what's coming ahead.
Yeah.
So with the number of students that you assisted to move to the United States, what are the common challenges that they faced in adjusting to the lifestyle, and how were you helping or guiding them to navigate through that?
So one of the common challenges, I wouldn't call it a challenge, but students in India, or rather when you are in India, right, most students are not really living independently. They either live with families, or maybe there are, if it's a student who either you live in a hostel and kind of an environment where a lot of things are being taken care of, especially your food, clothing, shelter needs are taken care of.
Basics, yes.
Yeah, where you don't have to really hunt for those, or rather arrange for those. But when you move to the US, all you have is money. Parents provide you money, or the low education loan that you have taken, they provide you money. But finding your own accommodation, cooking, doing your own laundry, finding where to shop for groceries and all that is something which is very new to most students.
It's actually the
Yes,
real independence that they've been
right.
put
So it's
into.
not about not having the money. Even in India, you have the money, but all other things are being arranged by either parents or probably if you, like I said, if you're living in a hostel, those things are taken care of. But when you move to the US, these are things that you will have to arrange because all you need get is an apartment. Most universities at a master's level, they don't provide a hostel or what you call those residences that are dorms kind of thing to students. Even the ones that do, they are slightly expensive. So most students prefer to live off campus. Now when you're living off campus, all you get is an apartment, right? So of course there are basic stuff that comes with the apartment like a fridge and maybe air conditioning. But basically it's just carpets and fridge and air conditioning. You still need to buy your groceries, buy the stuff that you need, cook. You can eat out, but then that turns out to be both expensive and unhealthy. So most students prefer to cook, but then doing all that, managing all that along with your academics, it's sometimes gets a little overwhelming for students. That is something that honestly, unless you experience that, you can't solve that problem.
Of course.
How much ever you coach someone, you tell them that this is what you can make them aware of the reality, but unless you experience it and you figure out how to do it, you really can't do much about it. So yes, when before students leave, we tell them about it. We tell them that this is how it's going to be. But then beyond that, it's once you're there, you're on your own kind of thing. Yeah. Of course, students have. It's not when you say you are on your own. You have a group of your friends or your other roommates, batchmates who are all in the same boat. So that's where actually your students forming networks in terms of forming good friends or being together in a group kind of helps because you can always share the workload with your roommates and all that. So forming good bonds with your roommates always
that
helps.
becomes a part of
that
the
becomes
process.
part of the process and the lifestyle there. Yeah.
So as student well-being is also a really important aspect.
Correct. Right.
How does Academy One help students take care of their mental well-being?
Yes. So over the years, both adjusting to the cultural lifestyle, your mental health and all have become kind of a prominent, I wouldn't call it an issue, but it's something that has come into focus. So what we do is we generally organize sort of webinars or podcasts where we invite some of our current students and we discuss these issues. We kind of tell them so that the students who are already there, right, they are in a better position to tell students what kind of challenges you can face, both coping up with your academics because the academic system is different, living with friends, being independent. Sometimes it's just matters of homesickness. That you're away from family, you miss your right from your home food to your festivals and everything, right? So it might sound like small things, but sometimes they can affect you a little, and for some students it can take a toll on you also, right? So we tell students that yes, this is what you can expect, and to cope up with it is always form good networks in the US, form good friends. Probably you can do on weekends or maybe during whenever you can go out on outing trips, get involved in activities, extracurriculars on campus, so that will keep you occupied.
Correct.
It's not that you're because academics can sometimes, although yes, you need to devote a lot of time to your studies and assignments and all that, you still need your breaks. So if you are involved in some other activities that will help you take your breaks, that will keep your mind occupied rather than you just focusing on one aspect of your life, which is your studies. So doing that, participating in extracurriculars, having a good network of friends, getting involved in activities that really you like, right? For example, it may not be a typical extracurricular activities, but on campus there are a lot of things happening. It could be just watching movies or watching plays or maybe going out on treks. I generally recommend students to spend more time outdoors, especially if the weather permits, and depending on what time of the year are you, because in winters you may not be able to do a lot of outdoor activities. But yes, maybe going to the park, taking walks, hiking and all that can help you, refresh your mind to a great extent. A 1 hour walk at least a day, sometimes,
And it's
helps.
obviously a new country, so there's a lot to explore as a
right,
student.
right.
That's nice. So, considering all of this, what initiatives are universities taking from a inclusivity and diversity point of view?
So universities do have a lot of initiatives from an inclusivity and diversity point of view. One is, of course, they try to bring, if you look at it from a diversity point of view, any university generally has around 35% to 40% of the class as internationals, right? So that itself brings in a lot of diversity on campus. That is one aspect of it. In addition to that, universities are aware of the fact when you talk of inclusivity and diversity, sometimes if you look at the negative side of it, there are also cases where there have been racial discriminations happening. Universities are very much aware of it. There are organizations within the universities to deal with it. So in case someone faces such problems, you can always go and seek help, make complaints. There's nothing to be really worried about all those things. There is a big support system, and universities are putting in a lot of efforts towards ensuring that students are not being discriminated, or there are no such incidents happening on campus that way. And there are, like I said, there are a lot of clubs on campus. There are regional clubs, there are social clubs, which kind of promote this kind of an inclusive culture. So that is something which is definitely that what universities are doing. Every university has its a different take on it. In the sense, they have different activities planned for all these things. But it's also up to the students to get involved in these. Right?
Correct,
So it's not that if you don't attend those events, or if you don't attend those, say if there's a cultural festival happening on campus, make sure you attend those. If there are some talks by some people on certain topics, make sure you attend those. Anything that interests you, I would say students should voluntarily take part in them. Try to make the best of your student time, student life rather. And that is how you can probably, at least the initiatives that the university has put in, take advantage of those.
Of course, yeah. Most students, obviously, after completing their course, their graduation, they're hoping to secure a job in their host country.
Correct.
So, how much do these visa changes impact their career at that point, post-degree work visas?
So, in the US, right, I would say not most, almost everybody, almost every student who goes for their masters is trying for careers in that country. If not for a long term, but at least for a short term. When I say short term, at least for a period of 2 or 3 years is what they would want to work in that country. And I also very strongly recommend that, because if you're studying in the US or in any country for that matter, if you really don't gain experience in that country, you may not be able to make the best out of that education, even if you decide to come back to India. So even if you want to return back to India, if you have 2 or 3 years of post-study work experience, right, that would help you find much better career opportunities even back in India. So my advice to everybody who is going abroad, try to work for a couple of years at least. 2 to 3 is what I would recommend. If you can work more, that's of course your personal choice. But if you think that okay, I want to go study and return back to India, still work for 3 years and then come back to India. That will just help you give a different perspective, and it will help you find better opportunities. Now, if you look at the US market or the US visa rules, after you graduate from any degree, be it a bachelor's, master's, or PhD, you get 1 year of work permit, which is typically known as the OPT period. And at the end of that year, if you have a job, of course your degree that you pursued comes under the STEM category, which is science, technology, engineering, or mathematics, and it's classified as a STEM degree. You can apply for a 2-year extension on the OPT. So effectively, you get 3 years of work permit. Beyond that, if you want to continue, your employer should file your work visa, which is the H1 visa. There are other options, but the H1 visa is the most common route that most students choose. So this is how the visa structure is in the US. So as someone who is planning for their masters, you should at least take advantage of the whole OPT thing, so that you work for at least 3 years. in the 3-year period, if you decide to just continue for a longer time and your company decides that they want you, they can always apply for your other work visas, the H1 visa or any alternate visa. There's an O visa which is also slightly getting a little popular for high skilled people, but either way, but that is something that you can plan later, but at least for those 3 years during your OPT term, you should gain I recommend that students should gain experience and take advantage of that whole OPT thing, and then maybe take a call whether you want to come back or probably migrate to another country or continue in the US if things permit.
You mentioned an O visa.
Yes.
What exactly is that?
So the O visa is kind of gaining a little popularity these days. It's a visa for a high-skilled worker.
Okay.
So when you have certain skills and you can demonstrate that they are really come under the high skill. Earlier it was more reserved for people with either a PhD or who have done some research, maybe which is kind of cutting edge research which you can demonstrate is of great value to the country. You don't really have to get a Nobel Prize to get the O visa. I mean, that was the earlier perception, that you need to really have a very high research experience, but of late there have been cases where the O visa is even granted to students who have done significant research as part of their master's degree, and or maybe during their work if they have some good publications or have some research. So of course an immigration attorney can give you a better insight on that, but students should be, I mean, what I recommend is always explore that option also, because the competition there is a little lesser compared to the H1 visa, but not everybody would qualify for an O visa again.
Of course, yeah.
Right? But then again, as I said, you don't really have to be in the really top end research category to apply for an O visa. Sometimes even master students do qualify for an O visa, so that is something that students should explore.
And when you say high experience, so it's only limited to the research work and their publications, or it can also count as their work experience or proven skills on certain projects or things like that?
It can count proven skills, but then proven skills generally is proven if you have some publications kind of thing. Just without that, it might be a little difficult. But again, as I said, I'm not really a complete expert on the O visa applications. So, but then yes, this is something that maybe someone who's experienced with immigrations can help you. But I've known students who have got it.
Okay.
So that's why I'm saying that is something that students should explore, at least if whether you qualify, whether it fits your criteria, is something that students can explore.
So with more universities offering dual degree programs, how can students optimize this for their diverse educational journey?
So dual degree programs, it works both ways. I generally am not a big fan of dual degree programs. I will put it that way. It is always better to stick to one core area rather than probably do a dual degree, at least at a master's level. Right, at an undergrad level, dual degree works better because we're doing even a major or minor or doing a dual degree where you can pick up two different skills. But at a master's level, you already have a bachelor's degree, you know what you want to do. So master's is more, or at least an MS degree, right, is more of a specialized degree. I always recommend once you do your MS, you try to become a specialist rather than being a generalist in two diverse areas. Because dual degree sometimes increases the time and cost also to do both, because you might have to take subjects from one area as well as the second area. Although it may not be 2 + 2 4 years, but still it might sometimes take you 3 years to do that. It will increase your cost. And sometimes you may not be able to get the complete leverage out of both the degrees. Right? So generally I say that, unless very few universities at that high end offer these dual degree programs, where of course you can do 2 degrees. It's not that, but then you just picking up 2 degrees and doing it. Where it is like a structured dual degree program which is designed by the universities. Very few universities in the top end are offering those. But at the mid-tier ones, I would say just focus on, there are some MS and MBA kind of integrated program, right? Which generally I have seen that they don't really give you a lot of value, at least from an international student's perspective. Because if you're looking at a tech program, like an MS program, then just focus on that, because that is where the jobs are. right? Adding a business degree to it, or adding some other degree to it, may not always work in your favor in terms of your employability, in terms of employment. Sorry.
So I think if someone that's trying to focus on business, building a business, be it family or start their own, I think it will make sense for them. But if it's purely someone that wants to go for a job and focus on getting employed, then it
doesn't make much of an impact. It is then sometimes better to say if you want, you're probably doing a engineering degree, but you think, okay, I need to pick up some skills in finance. Taking 1 or 2 courses in finance can still make sense, or maybe an additional certificate in finance or something like that. But doing a complete master's in finance along with your engineering degree may not really make sense so much.
Okay, got it.
Right, so you don't need to do the full degree to get the skills. Adding 1 or 2 courses or maybe a small certificate on the side is good, but not a whole degree.
What are the common misconceptions that students have regarding their OPT and CPT, and how do they tackle those?
Well, rather than misconceptions, I would say, see, the CPT is more for doing an internship. I mean, CPT is designed for students who want to work while they are studying. And again, while they are studying, in the sense, you are allowed to work during your summers, or after you finish 2 semesters of coursework, then the universities issue the CPT. CPT is more designed, like if you want to do an internship at some company, you can opt for a CPT. OPT is more for doing full-time employment after graduation.
Post-graduation, yeah.
Of course, now the US government has started something called as the pre-OPT, which you can apply for an OPT even if before you graduate. Ideally, it was meant for students who actually graduated. That is, the OPT would start only after you graduated. But there is something called as a pre-OPT even in the final semester. If you want to graduate, you want to start working, but because you may not be eligible for a CPT at that point because the work is not part of the curriculum, then you can apply for a pre-OPT. So CPT ideally can be for a maximum period of 11 months. That is, during your entire duration of your studies, you can work as an intern for a maximum period of 11 months.
Okay.
You can go 12 months, but then that means if you do 12 months of CPT, you will not be eligible for an OPT. So that's like, you unnecessarily are taking too much risk. And ideally, CPT is used in the summer. There are some programs that allow co-ops. So co-ops would let you work while you are studying, and then the university would issue you a CPT for a longer duration, maybe 2 semesters or even 3 semesters, but for a maximum period of 11 months. OPT is after you graduate typically, but in the last semester, if you think there is an employment opportunity, you want to work, the university permits it, but since it's not part of the internship or co-op program, then you might have to apply for a pre-OPT or a pre-completion OPT. But you still need to understand that OPT will still be for 1 year only. So even if you apply for pre-OPT, it doesn't mean that you get 1 year after graduation. It will be 1 year from the, so if you apply say 3 months before graduation, then effectively it will be 3 months plus 9 months after graduation. Of course, if it's a STEM degree, you can still extend it for another 2 more years.
Yeah.
But the total OPT time will be 1 plus 2 years in that case.
Okay.
And then on the OPT, again, there is a rule that you can't be unemployed for more than 90 days.
On the OPT?
On the OPT, okay. Yes. So even if you apply for OPT after graduation, from the start of the OPT, within 90 days, you have to find your job, your first job.
Okay.
And if you leave a job in between, within 90 days, you have to find another job.
So, for instance, if I have completed my education and then I'm not able to find a job, I get an internship instead. Does that count? Is it still valid in an OPT period?
Now, how do you define an internship or a job? Internship, I mean, as long as you're working full time there, but yes, it might be just a 3-month period or a 6-month period, temporary contract kind of thing. Yes, you can still do that. Of course, whether you're working on the CPT or you're working on the OPT, the rule is that it should be a job or a project or internship or whatever you call it, which should be relevant to the masters that you have done or the education that you have done. It can't be just any job. I mean, you just can't go and work at a restaurant for 3 months and say I got a job kind of thing, right? It may not be relevant to the program that you have done.
Yes.
Right. So if you do that, then you may not be able to extend your OPT and all those things. So, right? And ideally, you're not supposed to do that, but yes.
So how can students leverage their CPT experience when they're applying for their jobs later on?
So as I said earlier, CPT is more for an internship, and when students go for their masters, it is getting an internship is a very important point in their whole career, because converting that internship to a full-time job is sometimes easier. So most students who go for their masters, and even when students come and discuss with us, we strongly recommend that they try for programs that allow them an internship. There are certain programs which are very compact, in the sense there are 9 months program where you can graduate in 2 semesters and all that. Those are good. But then if you do not have a significant experience in India, then sometimes these programs might be a little hectic for students, and then they don't allow you to do an internship. So that might also be a small problem. Because if you're going as a fresher without work experience in India, or without any work experience in India, directly trying to find full-time employment in the US might be a little difficult. It's not that it's impossible, but it's just you're increasing the difficulties for yourself. So students who go as a fresher, or even who do not have significant experience, we generally recommend programs where they are allowed to do an internship. That is where they get the CPT, and then they can use that internship experience both for either converting that itself to a full-time employment, or then trying for full-time job. When they try for full-time jobs, that experience would help them get a full-time job much easier.
Okay. And ideally, what every job right now, or just the job market in general, requires is everybody to be trained in the basic skill that is required, and that is why I believe they've been preferring students that have certain experience, be it an internship or their previous jobs.
Correct, right. So having some experience, and especially US job experience plays an important role. In fact, the whole reason why companies hire interns is kind of using that as a test market, right? They select, they want to see how the skills are. So most students who do their internships and they do perform well in the internships get full-time opportunities. In fact, most companies hire internships only when they know that yes, we are looking for full-time students, maybe a semester later or something like that. And that's why they hire interns, so that they know whom they can recruit. So it's just good for companies also, because it shortens their recruitment period.
Correct. Okay.
And it's good for students because they know that they can get something out of it.
And sometimes it's also like a training period for them
Correct.
Adapt to the culture and the system, and how the ins and outs of the requirements of that particular job is from them.
Sure, definitely, yes.
With your 20 years of experience in the industry, can you share any standout stories from particular students that went through Academy 1 or were under your guidance, and that could really stand out for the viewers and aspiring students watching right now?
Standout stories, there are many. Success stories, if you see, there are many. But some standout stories, like I was telling you, there are students who really could not get into the tier 1 universities. And so I had students who went to maybe a mid-tier university, worked really well in that first semester, and then applied to tier 2 universities for the next intake, next semester. So those kind of, I knew a student who really wanted to study at a CMU or a kind of a university, but he could not get in. His academic credentials were not really that great. So, but then what, and he also knew that, right? So he went to a mid-tier university, worked really well, got all A's in the first year there. And then while he was there, he started talking to professors from CMU, telling them what research he is doing currently at this university, tried to build a connection. And for the next year, he actually shifted to CMU. He got an admit to CMU. Of course, he had to do 1 semester extra because he could not transfer all the credits from his earlier university there. But finally, he graduated from CMU, which was kind of his dream school. So those are some of the, what I would say, standout stories. Another standout story is that, one more thing which students don't really realize is that, okay, if you want a dream school, right? Some of these dream universities offer programs which are not very popular. Like everybody knows, okay, there is an MS in computer science kind of thing, but sometimes, there are programs in, nowadays you have programs in AI, data science, ML, or even in information technology and all that, which are not very popular. So sometimes you could get into, say, a Duke or a Harvard or a Stanford kind of a university by choosing one of these alternate programs. And what happens is when it comes to recruitment, right, companies are looking at skills. They really don't care about whether you're a MS in computer science or whether you're an MS in information technology, or as long as you have the skills, they are willing to recruit. So by looking at some of these alternate programs at top tier universities, you can still get a very strong brand on your resume. Although it may not be exactly an MS in computer science, but that doesn't stop you from getting the kind of employment opportunities that you get, and you can still claim, right, I'm a Stanford graduate or I'm a Duke graduate.
University names matter a lot.
At least in the top tier, it does matter. And if you want, and if you are that brand conscious, and you want a good name on the resume, then I would say, and if you really sometimes find it difficult to get into the core programs, which are the most popular ones, I always tell students that look at some of the alternate programs. Like CMU has so many programs at masters, in the masters category, some of which you may not have heard of also. Right, so try to explore those options also. So you still get to graduate from, say, a CMU or an NYU or a Columbia, if that is what your dream is. But by picking up maybe one of the, I wouldn't say very easy to get in programs, but comparatively easier to get in programs.
The new age ones.
Yeah, the new age programs, right? And you still, because you still get access to the CMU network, you still probably get access to their career services. And sometimes, because they are new programs, the schools also are trying to promote those, or rather, make them popular. And they try to focus a lot on their employment statistics for those programs. Because they know that a CS graduate will always get employment. But maybe an X program, which is very new, they want to keep that program. So we need to make sure for the next batch, the employment statistics have to be good for this program. Otherwise, the next batch wouldn't come in.
And I think taking a unique degree also makes the students stand out among others.
Correct, right.
On their application.
Yes, that also helps, right? And as long as you can garner the right skills, employment is never a challenge. So,
yeah, because there's always opportunity. It's just on what you do and how you grab and make the best.
Yeah, right. So I have had these students who have gone to, say, there's a Stanford, there are these programs. You see, Berkeley has programs like these. So if they had thought, okay, I want to get into the traditional engineering course or the traditional computer science course, it would have been really difficult. I mean, they wouldn't have made it, right? But by choosing these alternate programs, they have managed to get really good career opportunities. And in the end, nobody really cares what was your degree, right? Oh, you're a Stanford grad, or you're a Berkeley grad, or you're a Columbia grad. That's what matters, right? So.
Okay, so with that, we've come to an end of our episode, and I think we're really grateful to have you. Thank you so much for joining in today, and the insights that you've shared would really be helpful to every aspirant that is watching right now.
Thank you for having me here.
Thank you, Mr. Jay, for joining us today. And for our viewers, if you want to visit and explore more about Academy One, I will make sure to leave a link in the description for you. Thank you for joining us. Do not forget to subscribe to our channel for more insights into the dynamic world of overseas education. And until next time, keep learning and exploring.